just the fact that pointing that out, what you said about the leftists, and even pointing that out today is like people started, like I was just accused today again of like not fomenting disunity or not being for unity because I pointed out that some leftist woman, I can't even call her leftist. This is a person who tweeted 3 hours before the attack in Israel. She tweeted that at midnight Israel time, that she hopes something like there's an attack on the, people dancing with the Torah. That there would be an attack in Tel Aviv, people, like Hakafot, people dancing in a circle with the Torah. And then another guy responded to her, yeah, I hope while they're in Tel Aviv that their settlements get attacked, in Judea and Samaria. And then she wakes up 7 hours later and she types, she finds out about the attacks down south, which is not on religious people, it's on people like her. And she just writes, what the hell? And she's like freaked out, she's horrified. So I pointed out that she, that this is what she wrote a few hours before. And this guy writes to me, oh, unity, unity, unity. It's like this buzzword. And I'm like, I'm happy to have unity, man. But this is a person who hurts. She did something a few years ago. There was a famous story with her where she leaked out confidential information, classified information by the that IDF had in their possession to the media. She went to prison for this. She hurt Israeli security. And I said, this is actually, me exposing a person like this is actually pro-unity. No, I don't understand, man. I mean, we're getting off topic here, but we should talk about this. We should talk about this whole thing.
I get worried because people, there's a lot of like, look, a lot of the stuff that you talk about, it's like, it's really only like Jewish people within like the religious world, or like Israelis can really kind of, decipher.
Folks, I just want to say in general, just to kind of clarify, we're not going to get too deep into it. There's an issue right now in Israel in terms of, we had this attack, right? So most of the people in Israel, whether they're left wing or right wing, are more or less united, right? They're united in the fact that we need to go destroy. Right. Now, after this attack happened, and by the way, it happened to people who are not settlers in Judea and Samaria. It happened to people who are like, everybody in Israel can relate to them because they're not religious, they're cool, they're hip, they went to this festival, whatever it is, right? Everybody in Israel can relate to them. Even right wingers can relate to them. So everybody's united. Everybody wants to go after Hamas. Everybody's united in purpose. But then you have this group of people who are just against the Jews, right? They hurt us, right? So it's one thing to have unity. So now everybody's screaming unity, 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 unity. We have to have unity. And God forbid you point out that such an entity exists, and we've spoken about this entity called the Erev Rav, that's actually hurting the unity. They're hurting the army. They're hurting society. Yeah. Not because they have a left-wing slant, but because they're actively doing things to hurt the society. Not because of what they believe, but because of what they're doing, their actions. And you point that out, no, you're against unity. There's something going on in Israel, man, where people are just like, I don't know, they can't talk about stuff. If you talk about stuff, God forbid you should talk about stuff. God forbid you should bring up, whose fault this may have been.
Well, that's the condition. That's the
demoralization.
That comes from the conditioning of growing up in a state.
Yeah, statist. People of Israel now, again, people of differing political opinions are, for the most part, united. I spoke to some people in a synagogue on Shabbat, and they expressed kind of skepticism that they think a lot of people don't think it's going to last. They think it's going to go back to the same stuff we had before this, with all the discord. And I said, well, if it does, I'm not God, and I'm not a kind of a legal decisor of Jewish law. I'm nobody, but I suspect that we're going to get another slap, because it's almost like we don't learn. So if God forbid we go back to the same state of affairs we had for, however long, the whole summer, maybe we had this, maybe longer, until this attack, you know, again, I'm really hoping for just all kinds of, just first of all, military miracle on the military front, and just miracles in Israeli society, because it's just, you know, again, it's just this little entity that is small in number. It's really, really small in number. Like, I'm not even counting the so-called, you know, regular kind of leftist that you'll encounter in Tel Aviv, who's just kind of misguided and maybe is tired. A lot of people are tired. Like, I remember when I moved to Israel and I lived in Tel Aviv for a year and a half. You talk to people, like, you know, they're for their own country. They're not against disbanding their own country or dismantling their own state, but they are tired. They call it, in the Hebrew, they call it the matzav, the situation. They're tired of the situation. Whoever caused the situation, whatever the situation is, whatever the cause of it is, they're just tired of the damn thing. They don't even want to deal with it. They don't even want to handle it. They don't even want to.
They're tired because victory is constantly
snatched from their grip. Yeah,
snatched from them by their supposed leadership.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is a lot of those people are kind of self-professed leftists, but I don't. A lot of them I speak to, and you realize that a lot of them are just, you know, I remember having them over for Shabbat dinners, Sabbath dinners. A lot of them wanted to know about Torah. A lot of them wanted to know about, Jewish law and what do I do here and what blessing do I say here. One of these guys, I remember this guy was a PhD, very intellectual guy, very nice guy in Weizmann Institute, physics PhD. And I remember he was torn. He was dating this girl who was, she was there to work from Switzerland, but she wasn't Jewish, and she was torn. He was torn about whether or not he should marry her, even though he was like, he loved her, this and that. And everybody was calling him like, they were saying, in Israel, that the expression is Polish mother. In America, we say Jewish mother. In Israel, it's Polish mother, referring to the Ashkenazi Jewish mother. So he's like, everybody's like, well, you're turning into your own Polish mother. Like your parents are not even bearing down on you, but you have this guilt about marrying a Jewish girl and whatever. And the guy couldn't even understand it himself. Why? He's like, I never cared about this. I'm a self-professed kind of. I think the guy, he said he's agnostic. He's a man of science, like they say. I never cared about it. And then all of a sudden he's like, I'm dating this Swiss girl. He ended up marrying her in the end. They had a kid, but nice lady, by the way. She worked for this organization called, there's an organization in Israel, in the south of Israel, called Save a Child's Heart. This Swiss non-Jewish lady worked for the organization that, they brought in children, primarily from Arab children from Gaza who needed heart transplants. This is what Israel does. It's an organization that's other children, not just Arab children. So she worked there, and he ended up, and I was like, wow, like some of these people are just misguided. They're just misguided. The media got to them. The news channels got to them over the years. The programming, the public, television programming in Israel got to them. A lot of ignorance about Torah and Judaism, a lot of ignorance about history. And but like there's those people, and that's the majority of what you would call the Israeli center left. I hesitate to call them unsuspecting people, but I think a lot of them are. And then there's the people who have gotten to them, that run the media, that run the what's called the Histadrut, the labor unions in Israel, the political class in Israel. Those are the people. Those are the scoundrels. It's like
what you're describing is in Plato's Republic. You have the king priest class, which the political class of Israel and the media there are a part of. Okay, and the person that you're describing is one of the producers. You understand?
Of course.
He's just an ignoramus. You understand? Because the people who are part of the top echelon of these are really dedicated. They're true believers to Plato and his Gnosticism. The kind of guy you're talking about is a producer.
Yeah. He's a very intellectual ignoramus, is what I call it.
It's like Reagan. Reagan, he said, like, it's not that our liberal friends are ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so.
That isn't so. Yeah. They know a lot of things that are not. Yeah. I had a guy on Shabbat tell me He's a right-wing religious guy. He told me that because what happened was we were talking about the whole situation, a bunch of us sitting around, between the afternoon prayer and the evening prayer. There's this kind of hour that you kind of just have to talk about Torah. We got to talking about Israel, and I mentioned there's a guy, very nice guy actually. He's my friend, who's he's kind of here working for an Israeli company. He's from Israel, religious Zionist guy, and he was saying how he was saying how I don't understand why Bibi just won't create some sort of like a like a wall to just wall them off. And I chimed in and I go to him, man, the answer is very simple. I told him it's Occam's razor. I said, because he's one of them, right? And he looked at me kind of like with wide eyes. And then another Israeli guy came up to me, Israeli guy who has been in America for a little bit. And he goes to me, listen, man, based on what you said, he's like, I agree with you. He's goes, it's very unpopular among my Israeli friends here in America, even, like he's the guy who came up to me is a Sephardic Jew, and they really love Bibi in Israel over there, But he goes to me, let me tell you something, man. Guess who let in billions of dollars, allowed billions of dollars to come in from Qatar to Hamas? That's right, Bibi. And then he goes, he's got to go. He's like, no, he's like, listen to me. No one ever accused me of being left wing. I'm the most right wing there is. And I'm like, listen, man. So it's funny, like they have it in their heads that if you say something about Bibi, that's how, washed everybody is, that you're a leftist. I'm like, he uses right wingers. The coalition that he has now. Listen,
he's the Israeli version of Ryan.
Let's give these guys, all the religious guys, all the Haredi parties, the Black Hat parties, both Sephardic and Ashkenazi, and Ben Gvir, and all, the benefit of the doubt, right? And let's just say that they are right-wing religious, right? Or they want to carry out certain right-wing religious policies. This guy, Bibi, he uses them. He uses half the people in his party. Half the people in his party are with him. The other half are being used by him, because he changes the what is it called? The list every election of the people who run with him, And so he uses half of the people in his party, and then the other guys he uses whoever he can cobble together. He's not right wing. He's not a right wing guy. Yeah, he's a rhino of Israel at best. At this point, he's just one of the globalist guys.
This is true what you're saying about him. Yeah. I don't want people to get. I really want to emphasize that they're all actors.
Of course, they're all actors.
Roles. Look, folks. If the Jews of Israel really wanted to have a secure country, free of these sub-chimpanzees, these absolute animals, right? So here's what would be necessary. They would have to arrest the entire political class of Israel. It's not just Bibi, it's everyone. Literally, yes. The entire, we're still going to make that meme. Yeah. The entire, for Trump, right? Where, folks, can you imagine like Gary Oldman from The Professional?
Yeah.
Right, where he represents like the American people, and then Trump, he's talking like how we're going to get this guy, that guy, and then we're telling Trump that when he becomes president, fire everyone.
Yeah.
The whole Washington has to go. Yeah. Has to start from scratch. Yeah. Literally gut the place. Yeah. You cannot trust anyone. Anybody
don't drain the swamp. Just bulldoze the swamp.
Right. And then like Trump was like saying, well, what about this guy? And then Gary Oldman turns around and goes, okay, so
with that anger,
yeah, okay, that's what needs to happen also in Israel. Literally, the entire political class gone for good.
So
everybody in the political parties, anybody, any Knesset member, the entire parliament, and like the entire top brass of the military.
Yeah.
The whole.
By the way, except for one guy, his name is Ofer Winter, the guy who actually purposely does not get, promoted because he wears a kippah on his head. He wears this on his head.
Okay.
Which I should be wearing.
Okay. So listen. There's enough people in Israel, normal people who can. So for what Israel really needs, and this is going to be necessary, I would say, for a couple of years, right? They need the generals who never attended the cocktail parties. They never got promoted.
No.
no political appointees, right? But the real generals of Israel who know how to win wars. Okay, they know how to attain victory. They're not allowed to. Okay, same thing in America. I'm sure this sounds familiar to Americans too. Okay, so they get rid of all the millies of Israel. Okay,
Yeah.
and let the generals do what they need to do, get out of their way, let them secure the country. It's going to take a little while, okay? Once the country is secure for at least a couple of years, 3 years at the minimum, okay? Then we can start thinking about reestablishing some kind of, non-military type of representative government, because there is no representative government.
I was just going to say that people ask me, a lot of Israelis or just people in general ask me, Sweet, so what do you suggest? First of all, they ask me, who do you, they say, short of Messiah, Mashiach, who do you suggest run the country? I said,
it's an interim government waiting for the Messiah.
Yeah, no, I know, but I'm talking about the structure. The structure should be as follows, something very simple. In Israel right now, the people are not being represented
at all.
The people of Israel are not being represented by those in the parliament, meaning you have lists. You don't have regional representatives. Something very simple. In Hebrew, we call it Ada, the council system. Like people send a certain amount of people from their town, and then you go up, the ladder from their region. You have, because you have the cities, and then you have what's called the Moatzot, the regional councils. And that's it. Obviously, every city has a mayor to deal with just municipal issues in the town, but you send somebody from the town, maybe let's say 2 people, like the American system, 2 people from the town, 2 people from the Moatzah, based on population, or people, amounts of people. You could have it one cameral, like unicameral, you can have a bicameral, however you want to do it. It doesn't have to be identical to America, however it pans out. But they have to represent the people. You can't just pick lists. Like, hi, I'm Likud, I'm Bibi, and you're voting for my list. And you don't know, let's say, even if you know who's in the list, you don't really know them. You may not agree with half those people. You may not want half those people on that list, but you have to vote for it because that's the list we chose. What is this? This is what you get. This is the crap you get. This is, take it or leave it. No, I don't want to take it.
That's not even real, though.
No, of course it's not real. Of course it's not real. Like, it's absurd. And you're just getting these, like, so now you have the list, and then the way it is now, it's like they cobble together these, the parties, right, into a coalition that is supposed to carry out the will of, let's say, the people that voted for those parties, plus, I don't know, like the will of, like, Israel, right?
They never do. Never.
They never do. First of all, they never do. Second, they don't even carry out the will of the people who vote for them. Like, dude, 10 years ago, when I lived in Israel, I voted for, this is when Naftali Bennett ran the first time, right? Why did I vote for Bennett? I'll tell you why at the time, right? I was like what you call a newly minted religious guy. I saw a guy with a kippah who worked in high tech. I said to myself, at the time, right? Naive as I was, who's the most representative guy out there of me? I don't want to vote for Bibi. I think Bibi is like, whatever. Even back then, I was just like, this guy is just like not doing the job. I want, I voted for Bennett. Okay. And then the guy came in and he did the opposite of what he said he was going to do. He literally did the opposite. He said he wanted to, let's say, you can argue up and down what you think of the plan, right? He had some plan to annex a certain part of Judea and Samaria. He comes in, what does he do? I'm going to give education to the Arab sector, like Arab women to go work. Why? Why did he do this? His explanation, because the more Arab women go to work, the less kids they have, right? He's trying to curtail demographics. He was saying he wanted the Arab sector of society to come, to come up. These people have these ideas in their head that, like, if you just fix them, the whole situation economically for these people, they're going to stop stabbing us and running us over with cars and all the rest of it. They started doing that 10 years ago. As you've seen, we've had funeral after funeral after funeral after funeral, mini intifada after mini intifada after mini intifada after mini intifada. It hasn't worked. On top of that, he did the opposite of what he said he was going to do. Same thing with these religious people.
It was never intended to work, by the way.
It was never intended to work, but I'm just saying, like, intended, not intended. It you know, maybe some people did intend for it to work. I don't know, but a lot of people, after this attack, all these like commentators and all these people in Israel, all these like famous kind of leftists, they came out and said, I must admit I was wrong. Some people came out, they're like, oh, I lit candles for the first time, Shabbat candles. I did this for the first time. Okay, very nice. That's very heartwarming. Some of these people, I must admit I was wrong. We were wrong this entire time. We were very naive. I don't know if they're being genuine. I don't know if they're just playing, as we call it, shtick. I don't know. I only know if a citizen, if a guy I see on the street in Tel Aviv in a bar comes up to me and says that, I'll believe him. I'll be more to believe him than I would believe some guy who was, railing against religious people for 30 years on in the media. I'd be less inclined to believe him when he says that. So it's just,
folks, remember how earlier we were talking about this Gnostic cult that was a breakaway cult that started with followers of call them the Sabbateans, right?
Yeah.
They were excommunicated from the Jews, cut off. There was a relatively small number of people, but they were all, they all became like whatever. They would try to create as much misery for Jews as possible. Wouldn't it make sense, like just hypothetically speaking, right?
Yeah.
That something like what was orchestrated on October 7th, right? Was something orchestrated by people like that. That makes the most sense out of anything to me. Okay.
People can't fathom it when you say that. I've said that a few times already. People
ultimately,
can't.
That's what's going to be revealed to be the case. Until then, people going to call me like a maniac, a conspiracy theorist.
No, a lady messaged me. She like blocked me. I showed you the message. She said, it just shows that you don't know anything about Jewish culture. Why would Jews do this?
Anyway, yeah.
And I was just like, you don't know anything about. I wanted to answer her. I'm like, if you knew that there's a such
you don't know
thing
anything about history. You don't know anything about.
Yeah, if you knew if there's such a thing as Erev Rav, you would understand that this is what these people are capable of. This is what they do. This is their calling card.
Yeah, we're going to discuss. My colleague here keeps saying Erev Rav.
Yeah.
It was a term from the Hebrew scripture, which is what we refer to in the book of Exodus.
Mm-hmm.
It was the Egyptians who went out with the Jews during the Exodus, who wanted to join with the Jews, and who did. They were called the mixed multitude. That's the translation. It's not a great translation. Okay, and we'll get into the spiritual tradition as to who these people are, what they're about, and how they influence, how they affect the world.